Hey guys, I am Vanguard here with the How to Play series, and I finally brought Happy Toys to my channel. I wanted to show you guys how I did really well with Heart Lure this season, and kind of wanted to give you my perspective on how to play this deck. Let's get started. Alright, so kind of going over the lineup here. As you see here, I think the best way to run a Happy Toy deck is to run as much Happy Toys as possible with your Persona rides, and the order toys are made for children. So as you see, there could be some flex spaces that you can make, but ideally I think running more toys is the better synergy for this deck. So with the Happy Toy deck, there is maybe one or two spaces that you can run on tech choices, such as the Ace unit for this deck, or you can run the the Jewel Beast, which is the counter charger in your deck, which is very important. I actually ran multiple copies in my deck. I think I ran two. You can also run Philias, because I've seen many players like Philias, which, to be fair, I did like Philias in the beginning, and I kind of migrated over to a different card. And then there's cards like Forkalord, that lets you draw a card if you used energy, which on a grade 3 turn, you can use it. But there are some keys with Forkalord that I used in the Toronto regionals where I went second purposely, and I played the Forkalore, Energy Blast 7, because that's also considered as using an energy, and then use Forkalore to draw a card. So Forkalore is also a very interesting choice, but of course that you do want to run the average wrestler, so you can search for your Happy Toy order. So these are some cards that you would definitely run in the deck with the Happy Toy. Nowadays, because that you are running a full lineup of Happy Toys compared to the previous sets, that you had more options for attacks. Nowadays, you're most likely only going to have a space for 1 and 1, or 2, or none, or 2, and then full Happy Toys. So nowadays, the deck did kind of change, but throughout the season, before the new set came out, you were running different things to make your deck better and more consistent. The trigger choices, I did run effect heal triggers, which are the ones that get extra shield when the opponent has a restanding unit. This actually came in very good for me at the Toronto regionals because I ran 4 of these. But nowadays with the meta shift, you do want to run some normal heals as well. And then obviously your over trigger choice is the best one, which is the red OT. So as everyone knows, this is the basic Heart Luru setup. So by your first grade 3 turn, you should have 3 of the orders. Obviously, you're going to have some units in the soul, and then you are going to maximize to try to call these 4 units here. The Ruby Rogue is actually kind of a nice addition because this also acts like a Tis card, which you can discard it during your ride phase, pay an energy, or a counterblast to draw a card, which is very efficient. So Ruby Rogue is obviously one of the better cards to run nowadays. But ideally, let's say that you don't have it. This can be any unit that's an AK booster. Sometimes you don't really need the AK booster because this is already hitting a good number, which is 23 or 33, which is really good. You want to have... The important cards are these 3 here. Ideally for the horse, I have been keeping the block horse in my hand, most likely. So the block horse is usually in hand. If I have enough orders, I usually like to call the shark instead and have a unit boosted. So I'm just going to put Ruby Rogue because I actually barely call the horse on the board depending on the matchup. So this is ideally your first ride turn. The reason why you would play the shark over the bear in situations is that it does give you the extra attack, because with 3 orders, Luru only does give you 4 attacks in total. So with the shark, that does add an extra attack to hit their rear guards as well. So ideally, you have a goal with this deck. If you are going first, you want to try to kill them on your first turn if you could, but also your goal is to just push them to 4 or 5, which is like their dead zone or their dead turn with this deck. Ideally, you are pushing with the dragon, so you are trying to push as much damage as possible with the opponent having less in their hand. If this situation was going second, you would still play the shark if they do have a rear guard. If they don't have a rear guard, you can call the bear if you want. And let's say that you did have an order in the drop, that's when you also call the bear as well. So on that fact, you want to have a certain setup. If you are going second, because that you did get the first attack on your opponent should be around, let's say they guarded well, they have less cards in hand, but they only have 2 damage. So this is where the shark comes in. So most people would attack with this, attack with the shark, leave this standing, attack with the dragon. Let's say that the opponent did not take any damage, but they have no cards in hand. So this is where the shark comes in, is that you want to actually just attack with the shark if possible to push for the extra damage. So this is where the restand is actually very helpful. And then with the Luru attack, because that you have an extra drive now, you're going to activate the skill, restand this column. This has a crit. Your opponent's at 3 damage, maybe with 1 card in hand, like a discard fodder, or just like, you know, a persona turn that they need, so like a grade 3 in hand. So ideally you're going to attack, and then depending on your drive checks, you're going to put it on the dragon. Here is when you're hoping that you hit at least 1 critical trigger, so you can add the 3rd damage here, or just push it here, and then ideally push with the dragon and try to go for game. So some things that many people don't know is that you do want to try to push them at 3 or 4. 4 is the best number of damage because that's a crit, and then a trigger will make a crit. So ideally you want to push them to that number, and I feel like that a lot of people underestimated using the shark, which I think that kind of differs a lot of the players that ran this deck and said that, oh, it's autopilot, there's no thinking in this deck. It is true that this deck does not require different difficult combos and such, but I still feel like that this deck was very well, the deck was very well designed to win, of course, and very cheap, obviously, if you're not foiling at your cards. And obviously, like nowadays, because that Ruby Rogue is like maybe a $5 card, this deck is relatively super cheap to build now. So a competitive deck that comes out of the box, maybe with a certain amount of staples, maybe like three or 4 staples, and the rest are just the happy toys. So very efficient deck. So I would say that's pretty much it on the content. Because that this deck is very straightforward, as everyone knows. The key thing with this deck is that it is a very aggressive deck, and you do have to play the deck a little bit aggressively as well, and you do have to play the number game where you're counting the amount of cards in your deck with the amount of triggers are out, and then obviously how many cards that the opponent has, as well as the opponent's damage. So this deck actually does require the basic thinking of how many cards in damage, how many cards in hand, with this number and how many cards that they have, does that calculate the number for me to put them at 6? The amount of cards I filtered with the rabbit, does that give me a good number to hit more triggers with the Luru? And obviously, is the over trigger out? If the over trigger is still in the deck, what's the percentage of me hitting the over trigger on the opponent and putting on the dragon and then attack twice? And also another key thing is that I did notice that a lot of people misuse the bear. I have noticed that people don't boost early. So for me, I just don't see the point of not boosting, because let's say that it is a Persona Ride turn here. So they have the 4th order, Persona Ride, and then the dragon's dead, obviously. So here most people would attack with the bear only, which is 25. So if you think about it, 25 is 1 card. But if you swing fully, that is a 33k card, which even if they do have a front trigger that has extra shield, they are still required to give you 5k more. So the math here already changes the outcome. And by this situation, they should be at 4 damage. 3 with less cards, but ideally 4 with a decent amount of cards. So that's why I said is that it is important that you're playing the number game. The reason why, not just that, but the bear here is kind of special. So this card forces the opponent to guard with 2 or more when on attack. So ideally, you're still getting 2 cards away from them. So I just don't see the point why you would drag more cards with this when you can just get two cards and 2 cards. So that's 4 cards out of how many cards that they have. And obviously, they are going to take this as the 5th damage most likely, because it is a bigger number, because it's usually hitting for 38 on Persona Ride. And then obviously they're going to try to guard this, which most likely it is going to require 2 to 3 cards from the hand. So as you see, 2 cards, 2 to 3 cards, that's already 4 to 5 cards that you're taking out from the opponent on 5 damage, because they most likely took this, or 4 damage, regardless of what they did. So when you stand this, depending on your drive check, of course, you are going to try to put the power here, because the bear already has a 2 to guard. So you're already dragging a perfect guard or a 2 card guard, which is like most likely 45. So this is going to be 2 to 3 cards. A front trigger that has an effect with a 15k shield. So this is already dragging at 2 cards. So 2 to 3. So I'm going to say like 3 ideally, or 2 cards. Even if they perfect guard, which is 1 card, they're still using a discard target, which is 2 cards. So 2, another 2, that's 6 cards that you already dragged out, with them being at 4 damage, which the dragon already has a crit. And this is minus the numbers. 48 ideally is another perfect guard, which is another 2 cards. So 6, 8, or if they're dropping more cards, that's like 8 to 9, and same thing with the Vanguard. So you're already dragging 8 to 10 cards, not trying to die. So I feel like that this is where people underestimate not boosting early with this, because this is already a 2 to guard. So that's just one of the few things I recognize with players not doing with this deck. Hopefully this video helped you learning how to play Heart Luru and understanding the deck a little bit more in depth. I would definitely say nowadays this deck is a lot cheaper to build, especially because the deck's rotating out, and obviously because that there are better decks nowadays. But this deck is actually pretty solid. I would definitely recommend on players that are on a budget to build Heart Luru and have fun with the deck, and do well in locals and have fun, and obviously take the tips that I have given you on this video and hopefully get some results. But that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching.